I'm an Air Force airman. I am a bow hunter. I am a fisherman. I am Mark of all trades.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today we are on day 3, episode 3, and if you haven't, you're gonna want to make sure to see how we got here. So episode 2, we put up the walls. Episode 1 was a teardown. So today, I told you I had something really excited planned, and this is probably gonna be my favorite day. We are gonna redo the floors, and I will show you exactly what I'm talking about. Here, let me show you. So I'm sure you guys have seen on YouTube and other places of people who put the garage epoxy on their cargo trailer floors. Well, today we're gonna do it, and I'm gonna show you how mine turns out. I have high hopes for it, so let's get the floor prepared and we'll get right to it.
You want to make sure that you sweep the area that you're going to use, because then you'll be able to find out where your weak points are. You know, there's oil here or there's a spill here. I need to concentrate more on this area of the trailer. So what I'm gonna have to do next is kind of go over these oil spots and just try and sand those up and try and get them out just the best that I can, just so it'll really stick to the floor plywood and it'll really be that much more nice. One other thing I wanted to try was go up maybe 2 inches on the side walls, just so that it has like a nice finished look in here. And yeah, I'll just go through and mark 2 inches up all the way around, and then I'll come through with some tape and hopefully we'll have that nice clean edge. When I was researching the steps on how to do this, a lot of people suggested not to sand it, but there were a few people in the forums and online on YouTube that said it is a good idea to sand it. So I figured that the worst case scenario, I sand it and it's just one extra step. And I think that it definitely helped bring up those spots that were oily, and it had a clean surface for the actual epoxy to stick to. We've got the first sand done, the first passway through, and you can still tell that there's a little bit of stain but into the plywood, but it's, for the most part, most of it's up. I got what I can off the surface, so I'm probably just going to go through one more time. This step is an absolute must. You want to make sure that you vacuum, because the vacuum picks up things that the broom would usually miss. Don't let all these cans and everything like that in the box make you feel overwhelmed, because I'm about to break it down for you real quick. So we got the charcoal gray here that we're about to put down, and the instructions definitely said make sure that you stir part B at least for 3 minutes. So I did that. Then the next step said to use part A, and while stirring, pour it into part B. All part A is basically just the epoxy, and part B is essentially just the paint. So you're just mixing those two together so that they form a good bond. And again, you're mixing this for 3 minutes. Right here you can see how the paint thickens up. I wanted to get a good shot of that. And right here, you don't have to do this, but I chose to, because when it gets wet, I don't want to slip on the actual epoxy floor. So this is anti-slip grip that Rustoleum sells. I believe it's like $7. So I figured I'd throw that in there and see what happens. It's really starting to thicken up here, you can kind of tell. And so on the instructions it said you need to move really quickly. So before I even started any of this, I made sure that everything's in place and where it needs to be. So all I need to do is just pour this into the bucket and get started. But before I did that, I wanted to make sure that I got my sides really nice and good, because I knew that my roller wouldn't be able to reach right up in there and get into those really tight spots. Not only did I get the side of the trailer, but I also got about 2 inches onto the actual bottom of the floor of the trailer. And so that eases it a little bit so that the roller can kind of butt up right next to it. Here I'm throwing down the chips, and the directions say that you literally need to throw the chips up into the air and they land where they land. At the beginning I tried to put them up against the wall, and that really didn't pan out too well, as you can see. Later on, I found that if you just throw them up against the wall, it has a little bit of a better pattern. I know you guys are going to get tired of me just showing the whole thing, but I really didn't want to skip any parts of the process. I wanted you guys to see the full actual how I did it. So here I am painting the sides again. I did that first again before I actually went down with the roller. And so in the instructions, it says that you should work in a 4x4 section. This allows the paint to really adhere to the chips that you're throwing down. And so that just makes the process better, again, according to the directions. I'm slowly starting to get the hang of how to put these chips down. I have a much better pattern right here, and it looks a lot more random than me just throwing them up against the wall. So I was really happy with that process, and I'm just throwing them up, and they're landing where they land. So on this section, I think the pattern turned out really nice, but I'm still trying to perfect my wall throw. At the bottom of the last section, you can see that I didn't throw any chips, and I did that on purpose because, again, you're supposed to overlap, and it turns out pretty well. But when you're throwing the chips, you really want to focus on that area, so then it kind of takes away from the overlap, and that's just kind of a little tidbit that I learned along the way, and hopefully it helps you out. This was probably my most enjoyable part of this actual project was throwing down the chips. And so the gray is actually pretty cool. I like the gray, but once you throw the chips down, it really gives it that character. And you can see exactly what I was talking about before about trying to really hit the overlap with the paint chips. And once you do that, you can almost not even see it. And here I go with the wall throws again. So you guys may have asked yourself earlier in the video why I'm not wearing any shoes. Well, I figured this way I wouldn't carry anything from the outside as far as debris or anything else goes. I knew my socks were clean on the bottom, and at the end of the day and at the end of the project, I could just throw away my socks because they did have a little bit of epoxy on them. We're coming up to the end here, and you can kind of see a lot of rust starting to form at the end of the trailer. You're going to want to stay tuned to the next video because we're going to try and tackle that and see if we can't get the rust off. If you have any ideas or any suggestions on how to do that easily and efficiently, I'm all ears. Let me know in the comments. If you're going to try and tackle this project yourself like I'm doing, you really want to make sure that you're distributing the paint chips really thoroughly, but not so much that when you get to the end, you don't have anything left. So I tried to use mine sparingly and it ended up working really well. I had a couple paint chips left over, so I just kind of threw them into the trailer as best as I could just to hit any bare spots. But if you're looking to do this, I would definitely get another bag of paint chips just so that you're not spreading yourself thin. It looks good. I love it. I think it's been 48 hours now, and it looks good. The only thing that I would have changed is I wish I went up higher on the sides. So you can kind of see this looks like an inch, but I measured it up 2 inches. And then the other thing is that if you look over here, when I was throwing the chips, I should have thrown them up against the wall, and then they would have kind of came up like this a little bit. I did that kind of here. You can tell a little bit that it's kind of clumped right there a little bit, but I mean, the average person wouldn't realize that. But I still think that looks great. I think for this area, the chips were enough, but if you were gonna do a whole garage floor, just one car,
I would buy a second bag of chips because this is definitely not enough for a whole car garage. But overall, it came out good. I really like it. The anti-slip in there, you can't really feel it. It's not slippery, but it's definitely not gonna like stop you right away. So we'll see as it goes on. We'll see how long it lasts. It looks like a pretty good product, but again, time will tell. But overall, just the overall look, I think it looks fabulous. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like this video if it helps you guys. And then you're going to want to tune into the next episode because we're going to be putting the shelving back into here. So make sure you stay tuned and we'll catch you in the next video.